All right, welcome back to the Hospitality Strategy Lab. My name is Jason Littrell, and today I'm sitting down with Eddie Fahmy. He's the franchise director at Donor Haus and CEO of A to Z Restaurant Consulting. So Eddie's got decades of experience launching and scaling restaurant concepts in New York City. And right now he's in the middle of one of the most interesting growth stories in fast casual. They're taking an $8 billion European street food category that barely existed in the United States 2 years ago and turning it into a franchise machine. The numbers are astonishing. So they did $1.9 million in year one out of 600 square feet in the East Village. And now they've got 30 plus franchise commitments across New York, California, and Florida. Eddie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So in 5 months, you got 30 commitments for franchises for Donor Haus. Like what is your secret?
We have more than that now.
Okay. I mean, I just did this research this morning. Like, okay. So what's,
we closed a couple of deals in the past couple of days. We just signed a deal for South Jersey for 6 units, and we're about to sign another deal for 3 units in Connecticut next week.
Holy cow. What's the offer?
Yeah. So, I mean, listen, people that are looking to get into the restaurant business, obviously they do their research. It's a scary business because you look at statistics about the failure rates and all the problems and all the headaches running a restaurant. And, we've kind of created a model that eliminates a lot of those issues. We kept our concept very simple. We stick to one thing. We do it very well. We don't skimp on it. We don't really try to dilute the concept by adding a lot of ridiculous versions of what we do. And it's been working very well for us. The other thing is, a lot of restaurants open up and they have these big dreams of becoming multiple locations and being the next big success story. And, from my consulting side, I think the biggest mistake is people try to mimic a concept that's been around for 10 years, and that's really not a good thing to do. You have to kind of let the business evolve and morph into what it's going to become, and that takes time. Trying to duplicate something that's been around for 10 years is just never works out well. And again, they have these big dreams of expanding their concept, but they don't set up a proper scalability plan. They don't have the proper infrastructure in place. And we did that. And that's why we're able to grow so fast and offer the things we offer to potential franchisees, because we've already, scaled our recipes. There's really not much work for the franchisee to do other than managing the employees. We've already set up the infrastructure and logistics for our distribution. Our recipes are all pre-blended and shipped to each location individually. Our meats and our breads are all delivered through a national distribution. So again, if you told me tomorrow you wanted to open up in wherever you wanted to open up in the United States, we can set up your account. You'll be able to get real on-time deliveries and start cooking. You know what I mean? It's that simple. And our product is 100% consistent. It's impossible for you to ruin it. So all of those things were all pre-planned. This was all part of the grand scheme from day one.
So I keep on coming, like in my mind, I keep coming back to the Subway model, which is like the lowest barrier to entry for franchises, like around 200 grand to get started. But then they stack them on top of each other. How do you
we don't want to stack. We want to grow as fast as we're growing. It's nothing compared to like what Subway did. Subway, is just like you said, stacking. We don't want to stack. We want a fast, controlled growth that we can keep track of. We're very, very selective of who we're partnering with. Believe it or not, as many deals as we've done have been as many people that we've walked away from because it just wasn't the right fit. And as far as territory, we're using certain tools between, just basic common sense and, mapping and population and density maps to figure out, how to break down territories, because a mileage that would work in South Jersey will not necessarily work in the city of Chicago, you know what I mean, based on the population and logistics of things. So you have to take all that into consideration, but the last thing we want is for people to be on top of each other and affect their ability to make money. The one thing we hang our hat on is, 5 or 10 years from now, when we have 300 stores we want to have 40 to 50 franchisees. We don't want 50 we don't want 300 franchisees. So that's going to eliminate a lot of the headache, and if somebody wants to open up closer than we would recommend, it would probably be them being their own competition. That's something we would be okay with because they might know some insight on that area. Certain people might not come to a certain area from another area. Every area has its own kind of definition, but we're not rushing, and we're not definitely going to stack anybody on top of anybody. And one of the things we did when we put our franchise book together, we were meeting with the lawyers and the franchise consultants, and one of the things you do, you sit down, you have a meeting and discuss, all right, what are we going to charge? And when we decided to charge, 3% royalty, 2% marketing, and a small upfront, like a single unit deal is a $35,000 fee, the attorney was like, "That's too cheap. You're gonna make yourselves look desperate." And I said, "No, we're not gonna make ourselves look desperate. We're gonna explain to people that the reason we're being this way is because we understand that although a total of 5% might seem very low, it's 5% of your gross. And in the restaurant industry, if you're netting 15%, 5% of your gross is literally 50% of your overall profit. How are you going to make any money when you're charging 9 or 10% of the gross between all the fees?" So we wanted to take a realistic approach and really let people know that we're not desperate. We don't want them to just buy themselves a job. We want them to actually have a business where they can make money. So this was something that was very part of a very well thought out plan. And it's been working. People really appreciate the fact that we're not greedy. We're not trying to be vultures. We're not trying to be uninvested partners. We really care, and we want them to take money and roll it from one location into another. And if they're not making the money, how are they going to grow?
Okay, you might be talking to a customer right now. Okay, so you set up national distribution before even opening up a second location. Walk me through that decision. Like, why would you front load all that infrastructure before you had to scale?
Well, because again, the plan from day one, when Nick approached me, as A to Z Restaurant Consulting, Nick approached me and we discussed the idea, and I asked him, what your vision is. Do you, again, when I meet clients for the first time, I always ask them, are you looking to open up one location, 2 locations? What's the plan? Is this going to be a mom and pop operation, or do you want to be the next Chipotle, And Nick's plan from day one was to expand and grow. So that being said, we put things in place from day one to be able to scale, because the last thing you want to do is not have those things in place. And I knew when he opened up his first location, we would start getting franchise inquiries from the first day. Because we built the place to look like, when you look at the logo and the look and the feel of the place, it's like, are there more of these? It doesn't look like a one-stop place.
I got to tell you, I take my kid to school on 20th Street, and I pass by every day on my bike, and I'm like, okay, it already looks like there's 150 of these.
Yeah.
The branding is so solid. And what's really interesting is, like, if you've ever been to Europe, like anywhere, any major city, then you see like you cannot walk 4 blocks without hitting 5 kebab shops. And that's what I was reminded of.
Yeah.
So like my next question is like, do you have to tell people what kebabs are in Nebraska?
Yeah, well, listen, again, as we get into these different areas that haven't been exposed to this kind of food, it's definitely going to be a challenge. And we have things in place to do that, through our social media and content. Social media changed the world, let's face it, right? Nobody ever heard of doner kebab before social media. It just became very, very, very popular. And, when something goes viral, I mean, look what happened with Dubai chocolate a couple of years ago. 5 years ago, nobody was eating pistachio. And now everybody in every business in the world has a Dubai chocolate cookie, donut, dessert, something, a strawberry with Dubai. It's insane. So I think social media is going to really help us kind of take care of a lot of that problem. And then the other part is our internal marketing, our public relations team, putting things together and, putting the necessary content out there to keep people educated and let them understand what this is,
Before we get into like takeout and third party delivery stuff, I'm curious about your tech stack and your system. So you mind sharing what your tech stack is? Like, how do you manage orders and all that stuff?
Well, we work with Toast. Toast
Toast.
is
Okay.
probably in my opinion at least, is the best point of sale system on the market. What makes it the best? It's because they have everything under one roof. They understood the business. They anytime they saw a partner come along that had something that brought something to the table, they acquired that company and put it under one roof. So now you can manage everything under one roof. Back in the day, if you had an old school point of sale system and you wanted to do online orderings, you had to have like 5 different tablets in your store. And then it got a little more sophisticated. Then you can hire a third party like a Chowly or a Checkmate to integrate those third parties, and you still had a disconnect. But then, Toast developed a direct integration. So now you could literally integrate Uber Eats, Grubhub, DoorDash directly into Toast, which again makes a huge difference. Because when you're doing your reporting, like back in the day, to reconcile your weekly sales, you'd have to look at a Chally report, you'd have to look at a Toast report, and it would be an accounting nightmare. Now, with everything directly under one roof, you literally pull your Toast report and it tells you third party, Uber Eats, Grubhub, DoorDash, Toast online. So you could literally, everything's there in one report. It makes life so simple.
Hmm. Um, Okay. So as you go from like 3 locations to 50 locations, what do you think is the role of technology is in maintaining consistency versus training and culture? Like
Well,
keeping
definitely
everybody aligned.
technology is a big part of what we do. I mean, we and Nick joke around all the time and tell people we're really not a restaurant. We're like a tech company that happens to sell food. We're very heavy on technology. We take advantage of technology. Like I said, from the integrations to the proprietary things that we've set up, like inventory management. We have proprietary integration, again, with Uber Eats, Grubhub, and DoorDash that we've implemented with Toast to keep track of the reports, the kiosk ordering. It can't tell you how important it is to our growth.
What's the company structure? Do you have a CTO that like develops these products internally? Stuff like that?
Well, yeah, Nick usually is the guy. He's the very, very heavy tech guy that handles a brunt of that. So we have Nick, who's the founder. He handles a lot of that. We have Nicole, who is she's our chief operations, like chief of staff. We have Pamela, who is our operations director. She handles, running all the stores and those logistics, and myself as the franchise director.
What do you see the next hires being as you grow so quickly?
Well, yeah, we're definitely gonna look to grow in the next 6 months. I'm definitely gonna have to bring on a couple of more people because, we can only spread ourselves so thin. Eventually, we're gonna have multiple stores opening at the same time, so we're gonna need to duplicate, positions like Pamela's position in training the staff, having people available to travel and provide support for openings, you know what I mean, in different locations. We're also going to have people go around and doing quality control and making sure that, people are sticking to the guidelines. So we have a game plan moving forward with a infrastructure that needs to be filled over the next, I would say, 12 to 18 months. Because at that point, we should already be at 25, 30 locations open. And we're going to have a significant infrastructure in place to manage that.
Yeah, well, I got to tell you, man, when you just gave me like the bullet points of the top line on what the brand was about, I was just like, fuck, man, how do I get involved in that? Because like $35,000, not a lot of money, and it seems like if you are able to efficiently scale that, then you're going to get a few people that want a lot of them.
Oh
like
yeah,
not a lot of people that want one of them.
Yeah, well, 90% of the deals we've closed are all multiple unit deals. And honestly, it's not because we're trying to sell or we don't have any restriction. Like, we're happy to do a single unit deal. But, when you look at the history of every successful restaurant that's grown in America, anytime they've tapped into a new market and they've started off with somebody that did a single unit deal, the first thing that'll happen is the franchisor is going to get 1 million phone calls and people are going to buy up that territory. So again, if you have common sense, you'll realize that if you're going to spend, it's not, by the way, it's not just 35,000 to open up a donor house. I don't want anybody to think it's
Okay.
that cheap. It's
Well, that's the
35,000
franchise.
just to
That's
buy
the
it.
fee. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But, you're going to make a substantial investment, somewhere anywhere between 300 to 500,000 to open up one location. And that's no, small change. So if you're going to make that kind of investment into a new market and you're going to create this buzz and bring attention to this new product that's going to really grow, why wouldn't you lock up at least a couple of more locations in the surrounding area?
Like in New York City, like we're both in New York City, right? So like, I mean, the only other thing that I've seen here is the food carts. Honestly, like nobody's really organized this. And I had some other people on my show, Shah's Halal, that are doing really well. And they're expanding this. But other than that, I've never seen any national brands out there that are like that you'd find in a Westfield shopping mall, for instance, or like in a into like a highly dense commercial area. So I think it's really exciting. I think you guys have a kind of a beautiful model. And
thank you.
I look forward to trying. I don't know why I haven't yet. I'm always there. I'm always passing by 14th Street in the morning.
You got to well, let me know, when you want to meet up for lunch, and I'll buy you lunch.
That's exactly why I started a podcast, is for free lunches. Thank you.
Yeah, listen, why not?
All right. So, if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to get your take on third-party delivery services. Do you guys offer third-party delivery?
Yeah, we do. Listen, you can't be in the restaurant business without doing that. Do I love it? No.
I'm curious why though. I'm like at 30%. You're talking about a business partner here. That's not a service.
Well, it's honestly, it's more than a business partner. And like I said, I'm very anti third party, from my consulting side. It's something I'm really against. I feel like those businesses, I look at them as, vultures. They
100%.
literally, they own 30% of every restaurant in America. You know what I mean? And they create, and listen, you got to give them props because they did a good job, and they literally forced everybody into a scenario where you have to, because they use all the money they're making from all their existing sales to give incentives to people. Back in the day when Grubhub first came in the market, they were making deals with big corporate people and giving their employees $20 a day in allowances. And they did that. They lost money, but they got people into the habit of these third-party apps. And whatever is your third-party app of choice, that's kind of your go-to, because it's like really, it gives you the comfort. It's sitting at home and you're literally just reading a menu at home and checking food by category. What are you in the mood for? Sushi. Oh, okay. Let's go through 20 sushi restaurants, see who has the coolest menu, or, burgers or whatever it is. It's just, unfortunately, it became a necessary evil.
I disagree. I think that there's, I've been doing a lot of research on this. I'm actually literally testing, book covers for the 10 chapters that I wrote about this. And the research suggests that these people are fucking criminals. I'm with you. I do not like that it's necessary, but I feel like if we use it effectively and efficiently as a customer acquisition cost, then it would be like a reasonable thing. Like if you're like, okay, let's spend $5-10 to acquire a customer, that would make sense to me, because if you have a lifetime value over several years and they're going to spend $1,000, then $10 is nothing. Sure. Why not?
Well, yeah. But the problem is that most people get into this industry and they don't have a plan on how to take that customer once they acquire them and keep them. If you get a first order from Uber Eats, Grubhub, DoorDash, like you said, you gave up that 30% of that sale. Now it's your customer. That would be great, but that's not the case. They're regular customers on Uber Eats, Grubhub, and DoorDash. And I think the biggest issue, and you probably know this because you sound like a pretty smart guy, is what bothers me the most is whenever you set up an account with Uber Eats, Grubhub, and DoorDash, they literally hijack your Google business listing. And when you click on your Google page and it says order now, it's again, Uber Eats, Grubhub, DoorDash, and then your option. So a lot of people don't understand how to set up your business as a priority. That's number one. Number two, you can actually have those links removed. And I can't tell you how tedious it is when you call Grubhub, Uber Eats, and DoorDash and you tell them you want to remove the OO link. First of all, nobody even knows what it is. You got to know the code. And if you don't say OO link, everybody plays dumb and you got to call back 100 times to get to a supervisor.
Mm-hmm.
And then it takes 3 weeks to remove the link because
This is on the Google side.
This is on the Google site through Uber Eats, Grubhub, and DoorDash. They automatically basically force you to put this link on, but nobody realizes you can actually call them and remove those links.
But
the other
unfortunately, like reputation is not a revenue center for Google, so they don't staff it with people. It's all automated.
Exactly. 100%.
And it leads you in a circle
Right, exactly. And you have to do it through Uber Eats, Grubhub, and DoorDash to remove those links. Then the other big mistake people make, and I see this with a lot of fast casual kind of single unit operators, you go on their website and they have Uber Eats, Grubhub, and DoorDash links on their website. Like, why would you do that? You spent all of this money building your website, creating SEO, marketing, getting people to actually click on your website, and now you want to send them away. Again, doesn't make sense. So, like you said, it's a terrible situation, but it's at the point right now where it's a necessary evil, and you can't beat them, join them, but you got to have a plan to kind of get those customers directly to you.
Well, the good news is that despite their massive war chest to fight lawsuits and create friction for challenging this, like it used to be against their terms of service that you couldn't try to directly engage the customer in the unbagging experience.
Right.
But now,
right.
I think that they believe that, I think with the Letitia James administration, I think that they found that was unenforceable, not unlike competition after hires. And so like what I'm obsessed with is this like idea of like creating this kind of unbagging experience that has like little NFC tags, and designing a system that gives people a reason to convert from being a DoorDash Uber Eats customer into being a Donor House customer. And like, that's the thing is like the psychology of the restaurant. Like, is that like people think that they're your customer, but they're not. They are renting you. They're renting you to make food for their customer.
100%. Listen, I was putting things like that into place 10 years ago. And I would set that up. Whenever I set up one of my new clients, we always had flyers made up, order direct and save, support your local business. We appreciate you ordering, but you can next time call us directly. Here's 10% off your order. I'd rather give them 10% off the order than give up 30% to Uber Eats and Grubhub.
I think you might find this interesting, but there are tons of DoorDash and Uber Eats clones, like they clone the software, they clone the technology, and you can literally either have your own driver force, like people that either work for you, or you can hire, or you can API into the DoorDash and Grubhub driver delivery system.
Of course, and they white label their delivery service, so we have that as an option too. And again, it's just it's like, people just get used to doing certain things. They're creatures of habit. They have their credit card set up. They feel safe. They feel like they can call up Uber Eats and Grubhub and complain and get $5 off their meal. And, all of those little convenient things that they put in place make it very comfortable for people to just use them. You know what I mean?
But the cost is so, like, I feel like I know that we are just like lazy by default, and like and that we're willing to pay for our laziness.
Yeah, 100%.
But everybody gets screwed, like the customer, the restaurant, and definitely the driver. Oh my God, these guys make like nothing. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing all this with me. It's been nice to have a candid conversation from somebody who's actually growing their business like crazy. Holy shit. Is there anything that you would like to add before we wrap up?
No, we pretty much went over everything. It's really good. Like I said, it's a breath of fresh air actually speaking to somebody that has the same mentality I do, because I'm totally against it. I'm like if I had a t-shirt that said anti-Uber Eats, Grubhub, and DoorDash, I'd wear it around all the time. And like you said, I wish people moving forward, and it's something we've been planning too, is to implement scenarios like that with the unbagging experience to convert customers back and really kind of take control of your business. Because, business owners also become complacent. It just goes down in their books. It becomes a line item and an expense, and you just get used to it. That doesn't make it right, because you're leaving money on the table that you don't have to.
Yep. All right. That's all the time we got today. I mean, just while we're here, like check out unbagging.com is literally what the name of my next book is going to be about. So this has been Eddie. So this is Eddie Fahmy, franchise director of Donor Haus. If you get a chance, check out donor.house, and you'll see that like this is a brand that looks like it's been around for 20 years and that is in every, that has 20 of them in every major city. So if you want to check them out, learn more about franchising. Eddie, thank you so much for coming on the Hospitality Strategy Lab. My name is Jason Littrell.
Pleasure.
And thank you so much. And just hold on for just a second, please.